everybody. It is a new year, which means you are about to get inundated with a ton of practice management, insight, and information about how to build a successful practice like the best in the business. And the disclaimer that doesn't usually come with the webinar you attend or the blog you read is that what works for one advisor, or even the strategy that's working for hundreds of advisors right now, may not be appropriate for your individual practice. And so I always caution advisors at the beginning of the year to really stay focused on their mission, what they're trying to accomplish month over month, their vision, what they're trying to do within their client base and community, and their value proposition. What do they uniquely deliver to clients to make decisions about the practice and nothing else? Now, that's not to say you can't attend the webinar or read the blog, but I tell advisors, take all of the information you take in about what's working with a grain of salt. And so the purpose of this video today is to share with you 4 what I consider to be advisory business myths that I suggest advisors either ignore or take with a grain of salt this year. And so the first one I'm going to share with you is this notion that advisors need to build a robust social media following in order to be successful. I mean, it sort of feels like everywhere we look, there's information about that advisors need to be on YouTube or Instagram, or suddenly everybody's on TikTok recording these videos. And if you don't do that, then your business is just going to collapse and you're not going to survive the next 10 years. And people may disagree with me, but I vehemently disagree with that. Talk to 1,000 advisors and ask them how they generated new business last year. The overwhelming majority of those advisors will tell you that new business was generated through, yes, you guessed it, introductions or referrals from current clients. And most advisors will tell you, actually, we got a ton of referrals last year. We don't even really ask for referrals, which indicates that the good old-fashioned being referable, treating clients with exceptional care, being really present in your client's life, those are still your number one prospecting tools. So if you're going through this thinking, especially this month, where you're saying, gosh, should I all of a sudden start posting on YouTube, or should I open up a TikTok account or make an Instagram? First of all, if the idea of that makes you nauseous, and if your clients really aren't on those channels to begin with, then it's really important that you recognize that perhaps you're having FOMO, industry FOMO, and start to reframe your mind to think about what you can be doing to double down on client care. And what you'll find is that if the objective is to, and the objective should be to ensure that you are always the first person on a client's mind. That's how you become indispensable to a client, by the way, and referable. You are always the first person on the client's mind. Then the question you need to ask yourself is, how can I continue to deliver content and care to clients in a scalable way moving forward? Now, maybe YouTube is your answer to that, but another answer to that could simply be spending more time with clients this year and using good old-fashioned, email marketing to stay in front of them. So that's my first myth that you should take with a grain of salt, that you need to be a TikTok star to be successful. Okay, my second myth is that at some point, you as the advisor needs to transition out of the advisor role and become a CEO. We are obsessed in the industry with this notion that advisors at some point need to become chief executive officers. And what I found working with literally thousands of advisors is that most advisors become quote unquote CEOs by accident. They're so good at being advisors that the business grows before they really know what to do about it. And by default, they become the head of an organization. Most advisors don't want the responsibility of running human resources and operations, etc. What most advisors want is to continue to be advisors and grow their business and rainmake. They want to have control over their destiny. What they really want is to own their book and not have their home office breathing down their necks. Doesn't necessarily mean they want the responsibilities of being a CEO. And so what I ask you is, if you're in that mindset of thinking about, gosh, I'm running the business when I don't really want to, but everywhere I'm looking, it seems like that's the right thing to do, recognize that you don't have to do that. You can hire somebody to run the business for you for a salary, of course, or you can join an organization, there are many of them, mine included, that enables advisors to simply be advisors and have somebody else running the business behind the scenes without having to give up equity or ownership. Our industry has evolved so much. There are so many different firms and structures that enable advisors to play whatever role they ultimately want in the business. That's my second thing. Okay, my third thing for this year, my third myth is this notion that practice multiples are coming down drastically and you should take whatever deal is being offered to you right now while it's still hot. In other words, the M&A space is just completely cooling off, and the deal that's being put in front of you right now by whichever acquirer is the best deal that you're ever going to get. And my advice to you, all advisors, is you should never take a deal based on market predictions from a salesperson at a firm trying to acquire you, number one. Industry experts have no way of knowing what is going to happen in the business over the next couple years or even over this year. Now, has the M&A space cooled off a bit? Have multiples maybe cooled a bit? Yes. Is there still an appetite to acquire wealth management practices, including solopreneur advisor practices? Absolutely. The decision, and I talk about this all the time, the decision to sell a minority stake in your business, a portion of your business, or all of your business should not be based on market conditions being pitched to you by the acquirer. That decision should solely be based on what you need, what is right for you, your clients, your team, and your family. And what I often tell advisors, especially the younger gen advisors, is unless you need capital or need to de-risk, in some cases, selling a portion of your business now when you still have theoretically 15, 20 years, whatever left to build, may not work in your favor. Be very careful when you're in the deal-making conversation with firms that are promising to help you grow inorganically in exchange for a minority stake or equity. Oftentimes, the firm is making that promise to every other advisor they're bringing in. And so be very, very clear on what the expectations are of you and the acquirer post-deal if you do that deal. So that's my third myth that you can take with a grain of salt. My final one is one that we hear a lot in our business, that advisors need to specialize within a certain client niche to be successful. I've heard this especially the last couple of years, like the best in the business are specialists within one certain vertical. The reality is you don't need to do anything. You don't need to be a specialist. If you run a pseudo-generalist practice where you work with 3 or 4 different client niches in your community and you genuinely love running that business, you have success with your clients are happy, you're happy doing that, the business is sustainably growing, then why change it? Now, over time, you may decide that you want to work only within one vertical, or you really want to put more resources around one type of client. But do you have to specialize to quote unquote be successful? Absolutely not. The theme of all of this, by the way, and that was my last one, was that the way you define success should be based on what you want and what works for you. When people talk about what the most successful advisors in the business are doing, keep in mind that what makes them successful or how they're defining success may be different than how you define it for yourself. All right, folks, have a good year. I'll see you next time.